I mean, we are heading to a legendary, semi-urban track that is literally bordered by the Wall of Champions.
And looking at the radar, a massive 75% chance of rain for race day.
Right. Plus, right at the front of the grid, we have a rookie driver who is just absolutely dominating the former team of a 7-time world champion. It is pure chaos. So, welcome to this deep dive.
Yeah, if you are listening right now, you basically hold the ultimate insider's briefing for the 2026 Formula One Canadian Grand Prix.
Exactly. We've got the internal track breakdowns, the highly localized weather forecasts, the exact development upgrades being, bolted onto the cars as we speak, and the paddock politics, which are just getting incredibly ruthless right now.
The mission today is pretty simple. We are going to shortcut you to being the most well-informed person watching this race, because we aren't just going to tell you what's happening on track.
No, we're decoding the engineering, the team civil wars, the financial strategy.
All of it. So you know exactly why it matters when these cars finally hit the asphalt. But to understand any of that, I mean, we have to start with the battlefield itself, right? The Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal dictates absolutely everything about how these 2026 cars will behave.
Yeah, let's paint the picture of this place because it is an unforgiving arena. We're on Ile Notre Dame. It's a 4.361-kilometer circuit, 70 laps, covering over 305 kilometers in total. But the defining characteristic is really that stop-and-go nature.
It's brutal.
It is. It's basically aggressive city driving in heavy gridlock.
Yeah.
You are either slamming on the gas pedal or you're just standing on the brakes. There are very few of those, like sweeping, high-speed aerodynamic corners. It's all about straight-line speed and massive deceleration.
And the internal telemetry data really highlights how extreme that layout is, because in these 2026 cars, with the new energy regeneration rules, that stop-and-go characteristic changes the entire formula of the race. I mean, we are looking at a brake application rate of 17%.
Wow, 17%.
Yeah. That means for 12.5 seconds of every single lap, these drivers are standing on the brake pedal. And in modern F1, braking isn't just about, slowing the car down to make the corner anymore.
Right. It is the primary mechanism for harvesting electrical energy to charge the battery. Which makes me wonder, with the new rules, does this make Montreal the ultimate battery management test, like more than just a traditional race?
Oh, without a doubt. It's a total survival test for the hybrid system. If you are on the brakes that much, you are constantly feeding the battery. But the flip side is you are also constantly deploying that energy down those huge, long straights.
Right, which brings us to the biggest technical threat of the weekend, super clipping.
Exactly, super clipping.
Let's unpack that for the listener really quick. That's when the electrical deployment just cuts out at the end of a straight because the battery is completely empty, right? Like your turbo just abruptly dying. Yeah. And suddenly you hit an invisible aerodynamic wall.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. You are suddenly relying purely on the internal combustion engine. And at 300 kilometers an hour, you basically become a sitting duck for the car behind you.
Just totally defenseless.
Yeah. The prime danger zones for the super clipping are going to be right as they approach the hairpin, and then coming into turns 13 and 14. If a driver mismanages their regeneration in the chicanes earlier in the lap,
it'll toast.
They will arrive at the end of those long straights with zero battery left to defend. The entire timing of their energy deployment has to be flawless.
Plus, all that heavy braking comes with a really severe physical cost. Montreal notoriously murders brakes. Think back to 2014.
Oh, the Mercedes disaster.
Yes. The catastrophic brake-by-wire failure that hit both Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. Hamilton had to retire, and Rosberg barely limped home. The thermal stress on the braking system here is just off the charts.
The cooling demands are staggering. The engineers are trying to find this perfect razor-thin balance between opening up the brake ducts to cool the calipers, which obviously creates massive aerodynamic drag, and closing them up for straight-line speed, which literally risks melting the system from the inside out.
And the heat isn't just an issue for the brakes. It's a total nightmare for the tires. Pirelli is bringing their absolute softest compounds to Canada this weekend, the C4, C5, and C6.
Right.
So we're looking at a track with very low surface abrasion, meaning the asphalt itself isn't acting like sandpaper and tearing up the rubber, but the traction demands out of those slow corners are immense.
And that creates a really fascinating mechanical contradiction because these 2026 cars produce incredible torque coming out of slow corners, right? So the rear tires are subjected to immense rotational force. The driver hits the throttle and the engine tries to instantly spin those rear wheels.
But the grip is high, so the tire fights back.
Precisely. When you combine that crazy high torque with the low track abrasion, the outer surface of the tire doesn't wear away, but the internal friction is staggering. The inside of the tire carcass gets unimaginably hot.
And that leads to blistering.
Oh, yeah.
The rubber literally boils from the inside out, and massive chunks of the tire just blow off the surface. So the guys on the pit wall are simultaneously trying to keep the brakes from melting while preventing the rear tires from boiling, all while managing a highly sensitive battery system.
It is a delicate thermal balancing act. And honestly, all of those carefully calculated thermal thresholds are probably going to be thrown completely out the window by the weather.
Yeah, let's talk about that radar.
We are looking at a 60% chance of rain for the sprint on Saturday, and that jumps to a 75% chance for the Grand Prix on Sunday, specifically localized toward the end of the race.
Imagine being on boiling, blistered, soft tires, trying to navigate a damp wall of champions. That forces teams into a horrible strategic corner. I mean, do you set up the car for dry conditions, stripping off wing for maximum top speed, or do you add downforce, anticipating a wet final 20 laps? It's a total gamble.
And speaking of gambles, if the weather is forcing teams into a corner, the internal politics at Mercedes are backing them against a wall, because they are rolling the dice in a massive way this weekend, right in the middle of a brewing civil war.
Man, this is the drama I am most invested in. Kimi Antonelli, the rookie. He arrives in Montreal leading the World Championship.
It's insane.
It is. He has won 3 consecutive races: China, Japan, and Miami. He is completely on fire. And then on the other side of the garage, you have George Russell, the established team leader, the guy who won this exact race last year in 2025 after that wild collision between the McLarens.
Right.
But right now, Russell's struggling to find any rhythm at all. He desperately needs a win here to stop Antonelli from opening up an unbridgeable gap in the points.
And the dynamic is shifting so rapidly. I mean, Mercedes is bringing a substantial update package to Canada, their big summer collection upgrade after skipping upgrades entirely in Miami. They are fundamentally changing the car underneath these two drivers.
Okay, but let me push back on the narrative surrounding Russell here for a second. If he won here last year and he openly loves this track, isn't all the pressure entirely on his shoulders?
Oh, absolutely.
Right. I mean, if he has a brand new, supposedly faster car at his absolute best track, and he still can't beat a rookie Antonelli, is the changing of the guard officially complete?
That is the exact existential question facing Russell this weekend. But, we have to look at the technical reality of the summer collection upgrade. Bringing a comprehensive package is actually a severe risk, especially on a sprint weekend where you only have 60 minutes of free practice before you are locked into competitive running.
Because you don't actually know if the new parts work the way they did in the wind tunnel.
Exactly right. A highly anticipated upgrade changes the entire aerodynamic balance of the car. It shifts the center of pressure. So the car might generate more total downforce, but if that downforce suddenly shifts toward the front axle during heavy braking, the rear end becomes incredibly nervous.
Which is the last thing you want in Montreal.
The absolute last thing. It can completely disrupt a driver's baseline comfort. Russell is already struggling with his rhythm. If these new parts make the car faster on paper but totally unpredictable to drive in reality, the psychological pressure on him is going to compound so fast.
Mercedes really hopes their new parts fix their balance issues, but McLaren doesn't have that uncertainty right now. They already know their upgrades work. They're essentially fielding a 100% new car across 2 races.
It's a brilliant development strategy.
It really is. They brought half of the upgrades to Miami, the new floor of the side pods, the rear wing, which gave Lando Norris the pace to win the sprint. Now here in Canada, they're bolting on the remaining half, likely a radically revised front wing, nose, and wakeboard.
And that second half is absolutely critical. The aerodynamic philosophy of these cars starts at the very front. The front wing and the wakeboard dictate where the dirty air coming off the front tires actually goes.
Right.
If McLaren's new wakeboards can successfully push that turbulent tire wake further outboard and away from the floor, the upgrades they brought to Miami will suddenly work even better. It unlocks the whole package.
And McLaren has major unfinished business in Montreal. I mean, remember, it was Norris and Oscar Piastri colliding here last year that handed the win to Russell in the first place. Now they have a fully finalized, integrated aero package designed specifically to challenge Mercedes at the front.
But while McLaren is finding pace through clean airflow, Ferrari is finding it through highly aggressive engine concepts. The engineering philosophy between these mid-season rebuilds is totally contrasting.
Yeah, talk about the Ferrari upgrades.
Ferrari is introducing their ADU2 upgrade, the Aerodynamic Development Unit. But it's not just wings and floor edges. They are fundamentally altering how the engine runs to gain an aerodynamic advantage.
They are running the combustion chamber extremely hot, right?
Yeah.
Like dangerously hot.
They are pushing the thermal limits of modern metallurgy. By allowing the engine to run at much higher temperatures, Ferrari can shrink the cooling requirements. Smaller radiators mean they can physically tighten the aerodynamic packaging of the side pods, which creates less drag and more downforce.
So they are literally sacrificing raw internal combustion efficiency and risking reliability just to slice through the air better.
Yeah.
That is wild.
It's a huge gamble.
Add in the new blades they've attached to the turbo to chase high RPM power, and you have an engine that is living right on the very edge of detonating.
Exactly.
And to add to the Ferrari drama, the FIA is looking at banning their monkey seat blown exhaust trick for 2027. Now, I saw this in our internal notes, but we need to explain what a monkey seat actually is because it sounds completely ridiculous.
It really does. But it's a brilliant piece of engineering loophole hunting. A monkey seat is this small secondary winglet placed directly above or below the primary exhaust outlet at the rear of the car. It doesn't generate much downforce on its own at all.
So what does it actually do?
It uses the high-energy, high-velocity blast of hot exhaust gas to manipulate the airflow around the main rear wing. It essentially acts as an aerodynamic bridge. It helps pull the airflow up and keeps it attached to the underside of the rear wing at lower speeds, so it generates localized downforce using actual engine gases.
Which is exactly what you need coming out of the slow corners at the Montreal hairpin.
Precisely. And the FIA hates it, because the regulations are specifically designed to prevent teams from using engine exhaust for aerodynamic gains. But Ferrari has found a gray area, and they are exploiting it to the maximum right now.
But honestly, what fascinates me the most about Ferrari right now isn't the monkey seat or the shrinking side pods. It's what's happening inside the garage with Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, the simulator drama.
Yes. The internal data confirms that Hamilton is so frustrated with the Ferrari simulator that he has abandoned it completely. Since China, he is just flat out refusing to use it. He just shows up on Friday and relies entirely on old school feel.
Which, in the modern era of Formula One, where every single input is analyzed by a team of 50 engineers back at the factory, ignoring the simulator is almost unheard of. It's defiant.
Right. In a sport where teams measure telemetry down to the milligram, isn't abandoning the simulator completely wild? Like, is he relying too much on sheer talent and an era dominated by data?
It sounds reckless on the surface, but there is a really profound technical justification for it. It comes down to correlation. If the data coming out of the wind tunnel in the simulator does not perfectly correlate with how the car behaves on the actual asphalt, the simulator is worse than useless. It actively misleads the driver.
It teaches you bad habits for a car that doesn't physically exist.
That is the core of the issue. You spend 10 hours burning muscle memory for a specific breaking point in the virtual world. The simulator tells you the suspension will compress a certain way. You arrive in Montreal, touch the brake at that exact meter, and immediately lock up because the real-world track evolution and suspension compliance are slightly different.
Wow.
Hamilton has realized the simulated data is poisoning his instincts. For a driver of his caliber, relying on raw, real-world sensation during Friday practice is actually a safer bet than trusting a broken algorithm.
It's man against machine, literally inside his own team. It's fascinating. Now, while Ferrari is pushing thermal limits and fighting algorithms, Red Bull is fighting physical mass.
Yeah, they really are.
They started the season 12 kilograms overweight. They chopped that down to 6 kilograms in Miami, and they are targeting the Austrian Grand Prix to finally hit the minimum weight limit. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen is so unfazed by the development war that he spent his off weekend casually racing the Nürburgring 24 hours.
Which is incredibly on brand for Verstappen. But that weight issue for Red Bull is critical. The math in Formula One is just brutal. 10 kilograms of extra weight costs you roughly 0.3 of a second per lap.
That's massive.
It is. If Red Bull is carrying 6 extra kilos around Montreal's heavy acceleration zones, they are bleeding lap time every single time they exit a slow corner. It's pure physics. You cannot accelerate a heavier object as fast as a lighter one.
Now, the frontrunners are fighting over tenths of a second, right? Debating grams of carbon fiber and exhaust airflow. But when you look at the midfield, the contrast is absurd. It is absolute survival mode.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Williams and the budget cap.
Oh, man.
Because team principal James Vowles gave a brutally honest explanation of their reality. They have an overweight car, but they literally cannot just fix it.
The financial regulations are biting them incredibly hard. Under the cost cap, to cut weight, you obviously have to manufacture new, lighter parts. But you can't just throw away the heavier parts you already paid to produce.
I thought of a great analogy for this. It's like realizing your fridge is full of junk food, but you're on a strict, unbreakable financial budget for the month.
Right.
You know, the junk food is terrible for your athletic performance, but you literally cannot afford to buy healthy food until you finish what you already bought. You just have to eat it and suffer the consequences.
That is the exact reality of their engineering department. F1 parts have a calculated life cycle. If a heavy reinforced suspension arm was budgeted to last 10 races, and you decide to replace it with an upgraded lightweight version after just 5 races, you now have to manufacture a second lightweight version to cover the rest of the season.
You were paying twice.
You're paying twice for the exact same component life cycle, which instantly blows up your cost cap.
Yeah.
Williams is trapped by their own inventory.
It's a brilliant look at modern F1 management. Financial strategy is dictating lap time just as much as aerodynamics, but, you know, at least Williams is just dealing with spreadsheets and part life cycles. Audi is dealing with literal fires.
Yeah, that was terrifying.
Hulkenberg suffered a catastrophic hydraulics and fire failure before he even started the sprint in Miami. And Aston Martin, 0 points. Aston's engine partner, Honda, just reported a $2.68 billion financial loss because their global EV strategy is totally failing.
The pressure on these corporate entities is immense right now. Formula One is a marketing exercise for these manufacturers at the end of the day. When a board of directors looks at a $2.68 billion loss in the consumer sector, it becomes very, very difficult to justify spending $140 million a year to watch your hybrid engines finish at the back of the grid.
And if that level of corporate stress wasn't chaotic enough, we have literal grand theft auto happening in the paddock.
I still can't believe this happened.
Valtteri Bottas left his keys in his Cadillac at his Miami Airbnb. The car was stolen, reportedly used as a getaway vehicle for a crime in the outskirts of the city, and the FBI had to get involved to recover it. I mean, the guy had his VIP paddock passes inside the stolen car.
It perfectly encapsulates the bizarre duality of Formula One. You have thousands of engineers perfectly calibrating hybrid energy deployments down to the millisecond, and meanwhile, a driver's rental car is being used in a heist.
It's unbelievable.
But the most consequential off-track drama isn't a stolen Cadillac. It's happening in the boardrooms right now.
Yeah, McLaren's CEO, Zach Brown, just dropped an absolute bomb. He wrote a 6-page letter directly to FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem, raising major alarm bells about rumors that Mercedes is trying to buy a 24% stake in the Alpine F1 team.
This is a corporate synergy issue that completely threatens the integrity of the sport. Brown is terrified of the intellectual property implications here. If Mercedes owns a quarter of Alpine, the competitive wall between the two teams becomes dangerously porous.
The fear of the gardening leave loophole.
Right. Exactly. Normally, if a top aerodynamicist leaves Mercedes to go work for McLaren, they are forced by their contract to take a year off. That's gardening leave. The idea is that their technical knowledge becomes outdated by the time they start their new job, which prevents the direct transfer of secrets.
Makes sense.
Right. But if Mercedes and Alpine share corporate ownership, you can quietly shift personnel, data, and wind tunnel insights back and forth through the back door without ever triggering those clauses. Zach Brown is trying to block a super team monopoly before it even forms.
So with all of this on the table, what does this mean for you, the listener, as you sit down to watch the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend? You're now watching this not just as a fan, but basically through the eyes of the pit wall.
Yeah, you know exactly what's happening beneath the surface now. When you see a driver lock up at the hairpin, you know it's not just a missed braking point. It's a potential energy regeneration failure that will leave them completely vulnerable to super clipping on the next straight. When you see Russell struggling with the rear of his Mercedes, you know it's the thermal blistering fighting against an unproven aerodynamic upgrade.
You know the immense pressure Antonelli is applying?
Yeah.
You know why Ferrari is risking a blown engine for tighter side pods and hoping the FIA doesn't ban their exhaust trick? And you know why Lewis Hamilton is driving entirely on instinct, completely ignoring the millions of dollars of simulation data back at Maranello?
It is a high-speed chess match, played out at 300 kilometers an hour. And with the rain clouds rolling over the Wall of Champions, the board is about to be flipped completely upside down.
That's going to be epic.
But, if we connect all of this to the bigger picture, it raises an incredibly important, almost existential question for the sport. We touched on Honda's staggering $2.68 billion financial loss due to their failing electric vehicle strategy.
Yeah.
Formula One's current engine regulations, these hyper-complex, battery-dependent hybrid power units that we'll see struggling with energy management this weekend, were designed specifically to attract automotive manufacturers by mirroring the global push toward EVs. It was supposed to be road-relevant technology.
But if the global automotive market is souring on EVs, and manufacturers like Honda are bleeding billions because the consumer demand just isn't there, what happens to Formula One?
That is the ultimate question. Will this financial reality force the sport to abandon these incredibly heavy, wildly expensive electrical regulations? Could the failure of the consumer EV market be the very thing that forces Formula One to strip away the batteries, drop the weight, and return to the screaming, lightweight V8 engines of the past?
Wow, a multi-billion-dollar corporate failure paving the way for the return of the V8s. That is a compelling thought to ponder as you watch these heavy, hyper-complex hybrid cars try to survive the Wall of Champions in the rain this Sunday. Enjoy the race, everyone.